I'll just start off with a little bit of background on why we're hosting this webinar. My name is Jess, and I work with Newo. We're a nonprofit social enterprise whose services include solar installations, energy audits, and education. And this year we've conducted energy audits for a number of Alberta United Church congregations as part of the United Church's Faithful Footprints grant program, which funds energy efficiency building updates. And so this evening, you'll hear from Maroof and Garnet, who are Newo's energy managers, and they'll share just a little bit of what they've learned from auditing these buildings, which will hopefully be useful to anyone who's looking to green their faith buildings.
Hi, I'm Maroof. I am also with Newo. I'm the energy manager here, and I am from Edmonton. I'll pass on to Garnet.
Hi, everybody. I'm Garnet and also in Edmonton, also an energy manager with Newo. I have a background in mechanical engineering and renewable energy.
From Newo, we've been a part of Faithful Footprints, and this is Garnet, and this is me. We are both engineers with background in energy efficiency. We're both energy managers, and we work with Newo, which is a nonprofit which Jess already mentioned. And talking about energy audits, so last year and in the first month of in January 2024, we have done probably around 8 to 9 United Churches energy audits, and we were looking. Just give me a second here, and we like these were actually level 1 audits in which are the walkthrough audits, which are like more like qualitative, not quantitative. We're just finding ways so that the church or any faith community can save energy. So after doing so many audits, we found there were a lot of similarities between the buildings. So that's why we decided, okay, let's try to educate other people what are the best ways to spend the money and which way they can go. And yeah, feel free to raise your hand if you have any question, and it will try to it is an in-depth presentation, but we like to have a conversation at the end of this presentation. So just here. First thing when we did the audit of those buildings, we found like nearly every church had one common thing, like in terms of energy efficiency, were like the weather sealing, like windows and doors, weather stripping. They were losing a lot of energy through that. So it's the cheapest one to do, and it will save some energy. Like, for example, when we're talking about weather stripping, it usually has a life of 3 years. After 3 years, it degrades. So it is supposed to be changed every 3 to 5 years with payback less than a year. So if you think that you're having the drafts are coming through windows or doors, that's the first thing you should look into, because it's cheap, it's easy to do, and it makes kind of sense. Going ahead, in this picture, you can see like there are energy is being lost through the left picture here is the thermal image, and you can see the yellowish means the heat is being lost through there. So it cannot be seen like in a normal way, but when you look into the thermal image, you can see that energy being lost. The second cheapest thing to do is replacing your faucet aerators. It costs like $5 to $10 a piece, and most of the churches we went to were like really old, and they haven't replaced their aerators, or the whole fixtures were really old, with probably around 2 to 3 gallons per minute of the aerators installed. So replacing them with the low flow one will save a lot of water substantially in water as well as the hot water. So that is also the cheapest one to go for if you're decided, oh, I want to start someplace. This one will also be the one. Then the second thing we found that nearly every United Church we went to, everyone were having non-programmable thermostats. So they were set for probably 22 degrees, and they were left at that time. Even if the sanctuary is used once a week, the temperature of that space was set for 23 degrees, which means a lot of energy lost because it's set to 23. So replacing those with programmable, which sets the temperature of when the building is unoccupied to 17 degrees, will make a huge savings. And each thermostat will cost probably around $500 installed and have a payback probably like 2 to 3 years. And the other thing is like when you schedule it, for example, what we found was like the sanctuary was used once a week, while as the rest of the building was used probably 3 or 4 days a week. You can like program each zone at their distinguished temperature. For example, keeping sanctuary at 17 degrees for 6 days and the one day at 22, while keeping the rest of the building when it's occupied for 22 degrees and 17 degrees when it's unoccupied. The other thing what I want to mention here, like what we saw, like there were like some churches had upgraded few of their thermostats with programmable. So we would recommend changing all the thermostats with same kind of programmable so that it gets easier for people to change and do all the things that needs to be done with that. Not like different brands having different, it was mentioned like it was kind of confusing for church people to like modify or change the temperature at that time. So yeah, these are the programmable thermostats. Like we can see, like on the left side, this was one install where on the other side there was the new one. So people were getting confused how to like properly program it. The other thing when we went to like Hillhurst in Calgary. Oh, sorry, someone has a question? No? Okay, sorry. Because people tend to change and modify temperatures of the thermostats. So what they do is they increase or decrease the temperature and they leave it as is. Like putting out a thermostat cover will avoid it. So whatever program you're setting it up, it stays there and you will get probably a proper payback of like the energy savings. So the other like easier install, one of the cheapest one is insulating the water heater lines. Like if you go, like a lot of churches we went to, we saw that, oh, the water heater was recently upgraded, but there were no insulation on hot water lines, which makes like there is a energy lost, first of all, as well as like when the energy when you turn on the hot water, it takes time to read because like I said, it's reducing the temperature is reduced pretty dramatically with that. So putting in insulating those water heater line is probably one of the cheapest, and it'll make sure like your water is at proper temperature whenever you need it. Lighting, one of the best ways like to spend your money will be lighting. So nearly every church we went, most of them, like everyone probably had fluorescent or incandescent like lights installed. And one thing we were like kind of proud were like they were properly turned off whenever they were like not in use, which was like kind of good. And we were really happy seeing like, oh, everyone is turning them off. But still, like if you want to do those energy efficiency ones, LEDs should be on the top of your list. It will reduce your operating costs, as well as it will increase like the energy efficiency will probably you'll be reducing your energy consumption by lighting by around 50%, which is huge when we're talking about this. Other simple one will be installing occupancy sensors in washrooms or common spaces. So it depends, like if it allows, it's a good option to go for, like, yeah, particularly in washrooms. Now coming down to like some of the, like they are recommended, but they are very costly retrofits. The first one being windows and doors. we have seen like a lot of buildings had single pane. They were like probably from 1950s. They had single pane windows, which are very bad in terms of like energy efficiency. So replacing those with triple pane will make first of all, the overall condition building like the building condition will be good, like the air HVAC systems. Number two, like there won't be any drafts, and you'll save a lot of energy. So it is a good, but on the downside, most of like Windows, replacing Windows particularly, you're looking at payback of over 30 years. So if you have money, then it's the way to go. Otherwise, caulking the windows, replacing the panes, making sure they are airtight will be good way to go. But like I said, if you have money, then go for those high efficiency windows. Uh, what's next? Yeah, here you can see like these were the one on the right is in probably Vermilion, on the left is in Mornville near Edmonton. We can see like they are wooden frames, they are wrought, and they are not sealed properly. A lot of heat is being like lost through there. So if you're having similar like condition at your church, then we can like you should consider replacing them with like high efficiency triple pane windows. So just here, like if you can see in the picture, you can see like there's a rust on the top of your water heater. This is water heater, which means like there is a backdraft happening in your water heater, which is not good because which is kind of dangerous for people living in the space. So just for information, if you see that your water heater has a similar kind of thing, like you can see like there's a rust on top of it, that means you need to consult an HVAC specialist to have a look at it because it's not healthier. That means the carbon dioxide, which was supposed to be going out of the building, is sucked into the building. Talking about the water heaters, like usual life of a water heater is around 12 years. So we have seen some of water heaters which are like over 30 years, which are still working. But if you have similar thing, it'll be good to replace them with condensing, which is like high efficiency one. But at the same time, like what we found, like most of the churches, like they don't need energy, they don't need hot water at all time. For example, church is being used 1 day a week, but we're still using energy to heat water for rest of the days. So if you're planning to replace your water heater with high efficiency one, the other option you can go for is replacing it with the instantaneous or like on-demand water heater, because then you will only be heating water whenever it's in need. But the downside, they are a bit expensive than the ordinary one. But on a longer term, if we are looking into this, you will save money because you will only heat water whenever you're needing. You won't have a big tank of water sitting down heating up to 49 degrees. So that's water heater. HVAC, like probably this is one of the end, like why, because it's a bit costly. If you are like, if we have seen different buildings, different churches had different HVAC systems, they could be boilers, they could be furnaces. So we have seen like some usual life of a furnace is between 10 to 15 years. You can check it all, like what yours is. And that if it's like around that, that means it's time to replace it. You can replace them with high efficiency furnaces with efficiency of around 98%. But like same with boilers, which is kind of on the expensive sides. So the other thing which I wanted to mention here, like we have seen a lot of churches where like they were small buildings, then they were like renovated and like expanded to a bigger one. While doing so, they needed to upgrade their HVAC systems. So some places we saw like there were like 5, 7, or maybe 8 furnaces installed, which when you're looking as a building as a whole, kind of doesn't make sense. So a simple recommendation that we can talk about is like if you're thinking about changing your HVAC system, is bringing in an HVAC specialist to have a look at it so that he can size the system appropriately. So that you're not wasting your energy and you're not replacing like 8 furnaces, whereas everything like things can be done by only 3 or 4. Like you'll save money in that way as well. Other major upgrades, which are, for example, insulating the walls, which are very expensive, but they don't cost, like I said, they are very expensive. The payback is probably around 50 to 70 years. So it depends if you have money, and then go for the insulation. HVAC zoning. Hillhurst United Church in Calgary, we found it like they had probably a big church, but they were having only 2 zones. So if your church is having different zone, for example, your sanctuary is used 1 day a week, your offices are using 5 days a week, and you have a basement which is used probably 2 or 3, like separating those zones on different thermostats will save a lot of energy. Like you don't have to keep all the zones at particular temperatures. Fans, like we might have seen like in some churches, we're seeing fans. Why they are there? Like hot air rises to the top. So the reason the fans are there so that they can circulate the air. The problem with fan is like most of them are really old, 20, 30 years old. So leaving efficiency aside, the one problem we found was like they possess the fire hazard, which we like if you are having some old fans, you need to consider that. If you're having a very large sanctuary where there are a lot of fans, you can consider replacing them with high volume, low speed fans, which you might have seen in big shopping complex or superstores, like big fans working on. So that's one thing. The other thing is like heat recovery ventilators. You might, if you have a mechanical ventilation in your building, you can install heat recovery ventilator. What it does is it takes energy from the air which is going out of the building and changes it to the cold air, like replace it with the cold air which was coming in. It changed the energy and it heats up the incoming air. That's how it saves some of the energy. But like I said, it depends on whether you have mechanical ventilation system going on or you have a big facility. And in the end, because I believe most of the people here are in Alberta, solar will kind of make sense because like I said, you can generate it. Electricity is expensive and it's going more, and it's one of the easiest way to like save your carbon footprint. If you're planning to reduce your carbon footprint, one of the easiest way will be solar. We usually don't consider solar as an energy efficiency because we're not making a building energy efficient. What we're doing, we're generating energy. So if you're planning to install solar, we would first recommend you to install LEDs and save energy that way, then install solar because it'll make more sense and it's more environmentally conscious while doing that. So I will leave it to Garnet or Jess.
Thanks, Roof. I'll just mention about the Faithful Footprints program, which is available to United Churches. It's a grant program that provides up to $30,000 in funding for energy conservation and renewable energy products to help congregations lower their energy bills, reduce their environmental footprints, and live out the UCC's climate commitments. It can cover things like insulating attic and walls, major air sealing, such as caulking and weather stripping, conversion to LED lights, installing energy efficient heating or cooling systems, upgrading windows, new Energy Star appliances, or even installing solar. And churches in Alberta have the option to access that full $30,000 in grants. There's a minimum 1/3 matching component. So there's the church will have to contribute that as well to the project.
Great, and I can talk about Spice. It sounds like most of you are in southern Alberta or a little farther away from Edmonton. But Spice still works with anybody around Alberta. They're the Solar Power Investment Cooperative of Edmonton. And you can think of them as providing low interest loans for solar installations on nonprofit and faith community buildings. So they would work out an arrangement with you, and they would pay for all or a portion of the solar installation. And then they would work it out such the loan payments are less than the amount that you save on your electricity bills. So let's say you save $50 a month on your electricity bill, the loan payments would be $40 a month. And so you're saving money immediately, you're paying off this loan, and when you pay off the loan, you then own the solar array. So creative model from some good folks in Edmonton. Newo's worked closely with them. They just completed their first pilot with Newo on the Bissell Center in Edmonton this past fall. Yeah, good folks. Yeah, and so that brings us to the end of the formal presentation. And now we'd like to open it up to you. What do you want to know? Did this answer your questions? Do you have more questions? And did questions come up? Yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. First, I didn't hear you mention appliances when you were going through things in your church. Now, if you have a really old freezer, really old fridges, in a lot of cases in churches, they get donated from somebody that's buying a new one, so they pass on their old one to the church. So isn't that something you should look at if you're looking at energy efficiency?
Yes, it is, but it depends on how old and how much energy it's using. So that's why, like, I was like, it's here. I was thinking about talking about it, but I was like, okay, let's wait for question to see if someone has question about it. Yes, number one, it's covered under faithful footprints. And yeah, if you have a really old freezer, absolutely go for it. You need to go for it. And the other thing is, like, we have seen, like, for example, you have a stove, a big stove, which has a pilot light continuously running on, and you're using it probably once a month or once in 2 months. So turning the pilot light completely off, or like I wouldn't say replacing stove, but making sure, like, introducing new ways of, like, turning it on, replacing the pilot light will make more sense.
Okay. The other question on the solar, I guess, is I think you'd have to make sure your roof's in good shape, right? Like, you don't want to put solar panels on and then find out 3 years later you got to re-shingle, because then you got to take all the panels off. So I think the timing of any solar project would have to correspond with the condition of your roof shingles or your roofing material.
Yeah. Yes, like, I believe, I don't know, like, most of the, like, if you decide to get a quote from a company, they will definitely come to your church and see the condition of the, and assuming everyone is being honest, they will tell you, oh, hey, it doesn't make sense. Let's wait 2 years, replace the shingles, and then do it.
Yeah.
On that note, not all solar companies are as reputable, but there's an organization called Glean, GLEAN, and they are a solar broker that only works with trusted, qualified solar installers. and they work with you to get 3 quotes without any cost to you. So you give them the information, they give you quotes from 3 different solar installers, and those solar installers would all be the type that wouldn't sell you it if your roof needed to be replaced.
And I didn't fully understand again how SPICE works. Do you want to just say that again, how the loan works?
You bet, yeah. So it's an investment cooperative. So anybody can be a member of this investment cooperative, and individuals front their personal capital to SPICE. And then SPICE has a pot of money, and they invest that money in solar arrays with low interest loans. And then the church pays back the loan, and the investment is recouped. So that's how like SPICE works. And from the perspective of the church, you get a loan from SPICE. That's a low interest loan. These people aren't looking to make a large return on their investment. They're just looking for a good place to put their money, that it won't lose value. And yeah, and so it's a low interest loan. And you will be, I think, I can't remember exactly how it works, but I think they buy the solar array and then they lease the solar array to you, and you actually pay payments. And then once the lease is paid off, you own the solar array. And they try to make it, arrange it with you such that the savings that you get by installing solar are greater than the lease payments. So you're saving money from day one.
Okay, I understand at that time.
Thanks.
Cecily Fleming here. I have a question or two. Windows, like we've just recently had a quote to put in windows. Our basement windows are double pane and our upper windows are single pane. Should we go the extra mile and put in triple pane?
Are you like you're replacing double pane to triple pane, or you're replacing single pane to triple pane?
Single pane to triple pane.
Like how much is the cost difference?
The quote hasn't even come. The guy just left, so but if triple pane is better for the long run, because
it is, but whenever we're talking about windows, there's not too much saving.
Okay.
Like there are marginal, like for example, if you replace let's assume a furnace, you will have probably a 10 or 20 years payback. For windows, it's like over 30, maybe 50 years.
Well, that's what our windows are, 50 years now, so it's time to
payback. Yeah, absolutely.
And
so
actually,
if the finances kind of make sense, then it's better to go triple pane.
We're doing an adopt a window, so families are adopting a window and paying for it that way.
Okay.
So that's working out well. Now, the other thing is in our sanctuary, we have stained glass windows, which are single pane, a lot of them. And I mean, do you have any recommendations on trying to, we recalked some of them, but yeah, what do you think?
Stained, because they have that cultural, like they are important, absolutely. So I would say like putting in acrylic sheets from the outside and making sure like it's air sealed will kind of make sense. Yeah, or other people we have seen, like they have stained glass from the inside and they have put another windows from outside.
Right.
But they will be much expensive rather than putting an acrylic sheet.
You're right. Okay. And then when doors, when you were showing that was a double metal door, it looked like, and the heat was escaping. Is there any way, is there good doors, or was that a good door, would you say?
That was not. Door was good, but the problem was like the weather stripping was worn. So changing those weather stripping will make a lot of sense in that case. But at some places, we can see the door is completely bent or warped, at that time, weather stripping won't do too much. You need to think about replacing the door.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned solar. Is there what's the economics of geothermal if you ever went that way in Alberta?
Garnet, you want to talk about it because you did the numbers?
Sure, yeah. So we actually did a little study for Pilgrim United Church in Edmonton because they have a
1940s.
a boiler in their place that is like 100 years old. It was originally in a hospital, and then when it moved out of the hospital in like the 1950s, it moved into their church, and it's been there ever since. So they know they need to replace this thing, and they were curious if geothermal was the right way to go. And yeah, short answer is no, it's not. And the main reason is that in Alberta, natural gas is really cheap.
Yeah.
And so per unit of energy, electricity is 7 times more expensive than natural gas. And geothermal, what's cool about it is it's very, very efficient, like 400% efficient. Whereas your most efficient natural gas is like 95% efficient. But if you're going from, let's say 95 is basically, even if rounding it up to 100% efficiency, you're increasing that by 4, but then you're increasing your costs by 7 going to electric from natural gas, then you're still going to pay more for your operational costs. So it's unfortunately not even saving you operational costs when going to geothermal, and it's about 10 times as expensive in the capital costs. And I really wish I could tell you something different because electrification is our future. But unfortunately, our energy reality in Alberta right now makes that quite inhibiting.
Okay. Probably the economics would get better if, now we don't do it at our church, and in Alberta, we generally don't do it, but if you had a lot of air conditioning, then the geothermal economics would change a little bit because you're getting the benefit in the summer of the system.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But in Alberta, it's not gonna make sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, good question.
I have a question about lighting. Do you have to replace like the fixtures or, to go for, the better lighting, or is it just the LED bulbs? I don't know a huge amount about it, so maybe somebody could elaborate a bit on that.
Do you have like fluorescent tubes installed?
We have fluorescent tubes for the most part, although in our sanctuary, we do have they're old kind of pot lights in a way. And right now, I think they've got what do you call it? CFL lights, I think, are in there right now.
Okay. So for the fluorescent tubes,
Right.
the cheapest way will be to replace them with LEDs, but they also bypass the ballast,
Right.
which is much cheaper than replacing the whole fixture.
Okay, that's
So
one question.
yeah, if you're decided to go that if you're decided to replace and you're looking the economical way, that will be the way to go because it'll save a lot of energy. And for CFLs, whatever you have, you can replace them with proper like 9-watt or 10-watt LED bulbs. Like
okay.
that'll make sense.
Okay, that's helpful.
It's Barb Gertson, and I'm wondering about the Faithful Footprints program. Is anybody familiar with, do you have to have a pre-audit kind of thing with that?
Yes. What we did last year, we don't know like what will happen this year. Like we made sure like we're doing audit, which is like for no cost to the congregation. So when we do an audit, we give a report which tells you everything about where you can use the money to save it. And it isn't necessary that you need to go with us. You can do it by yourself if you have like they have the more information documents on there, and you have to follow those checklists. And once you do that, then you can forward it to the program manager. He's going to accept. I believe Jess will be able to elaborate it a bit better than me.
If I understand correctly, so the question is whether an audit is absolutely required. It's my understanding that it's not always. There's a sort of a grant manager called Stephen Collette. And when the first step to applying to the program is just to fill out the expression of interest on the website, which is a very basic form. And then he will contact you and have a conversation. And I believe his main aim is to find out if you have a plan for what you want to do. And sometimes that should involve an audit because you might want to see what your best options are. But if you know I think there are churches who've known very definitively they wanted to replace a boiler. I don't think they've been required to complete an audit. That's my understanding. But it would be worth, if you're thinking about it, to just maybe have an initial conversation with Stephen, and he can often put you on a track to figuring out what your plan might be based on what your church needs.
Yeah, we've talked to Stephen a couple times, and he's very helpful that way. If you have a list of things that you're thinking of doing, he can tell you which ones are likely to fly and which ones are likely not, and he'll steer you in the right direction. If you're going down the wrong road, he'll give you suggestions of things you should look at or think about. And if you don't know where to start, he will recommend an audit. But if you know where you're going and you have a list of projects, then you don't necessarily need an audit.
Cecily Fleming here. So Newco, are you guys an audit company? I might have missed that at the beginning.
Yes, like we're a nonprofit. We do solar, we do training, and we also do audit as well.
Okay, and where are you located out of?
We're based in Camrose as well as Edmonton.
Okay, so do you come to the south?
The furthest we have been was to Calgary.
Well, you can come past that force field. It's okay down here.
Yes.
So we would make, I have been in contact with Stephen, but we would make application to you to come and do an audit, because an audit makes sense. To me, that's a benchmark. That's like having a blood test. It's your benchmark, then you know where you're going, not only for today, but for the people who are going to be dealing with the church in the future. They can say, in February of 2024, this is where it was at. We've made some improvements. This is what we've seen. So I think it's important. Are they, like you say, you don't charge for it, but you got to recover your money somehow. How do you do that?
Darn it.
Yeah, sure. So
My internet's freezing.
Oh, hopefully it sorts out there, Thomas. So Newo is the regional support center for Faithful Footprints for Western Canada. And part of our agreement for the past year was to do audits at no cost to the churches. So that was 9 audits for United Churches, and we're just reaching the end of that contract. And then we're in the process of working out a new contract with United Church. And we hope that audits will be a part of that. And our initial round cut the line in Calgary because we were able to get 9 churches within that radius of us. And if we go forward, we may work out with United Church to get in a little more travel budget. Or if we can work out, I'm glad that we have several churches from Southern Alberta here. And if we can work out 2 or maybe even 3 in a day, then that can make that much more possible. So yeah, definitely possible to get audits down to you, but it might take a couple of months for us to get that organized.
That's okay. And will your contact information be somewhere that we can contact you?
You betcha. Yeah, we'll have all that info. So we'll send out this recording as well as the slide deck and information on Faithful Footprints and our contact information in an email after this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The one thing on the Faithful Footprints from talking to Stephen is you only apply once. So you don't have to do all your projects at exactly the same time, but you have to have them all approved at the same time. So don't make an application to do weather stripping and LED lights and then expect to go back 2 years later for a different project. So and if you're trying to maximize and get the full 30,000 or whatever amount, have your list that covers all your projects that you might want to do over the next 5 years, and then go to Stephen with the list, because you can only apply once. And so you want to make sure that you don't go the first time and you've got projects that give you a grant of 2,000, and then you're thinking, well, I'll go back 3 years later for a larger amount. You can only apply once.
Well said. I'll add another perspective, and that's that what I feel and what I've noticed is very important in increasing the energy efficiency of a faith building is champions in that community who want that to happen. That's the biggest difference between churches that become more energy efficient and churches that don't. And so your presence here is very, very important, and building that energy in your congregation is also very important. And you're very well supported to do that. And so don't feel like you need to figure it all out to get moving. Between Newo and Stephen Collette and the Faithful Footprints program, speaking to the United Churches primarily here, you can just start moving. Contact Stephen, contact us, start throwing ideas out there. We can also come do presentations for your congregation, introducing them to these concepts and why they're important. That's also part of or has been part of our agreement with United Church, and we hope it will be in the future. And so, yeah, your energy behind this is the most important thing, really.
And if you need help anytime.
Thank you. You've been helpful.
Yeah, if you need help regarding anything, anytime, shoot us an email and we'll be more than happy to help you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Thank you for your information. It's been great.
Yep.
Yes, it's been very helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very good because we're going down this path, but it's nice to know that there are options and support, because we were going to go down headlong and get her done. But this is nice to, because when I looked at Faithful Footprints before, I just kind of went, man, it's too complicated on audit and all that. But I see where it's not that hard.
No, it's really, the intention is for it to be a support program that makes things easier for you. And I think when people first view it, it looks like, oh, like you get the idea that it's a grant program where there's long application and you have to know so much information, but really it is a support program. So like dip your foot in, start having those conversations, and allow the supports to come in to help you build that plan. It's really helping you build that plan and then helping fund that plan as well.
And the information from Thomas is well received as well, because we tend to be, okay, let's dip our toe in and try it, and then to find out that you've excluded yourself. So you might as well make your big laundry list and then go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Very, very welcome.